Makes you think, though, would the police response be different if it was an instance like this? Because it's not just, you know, white man on black man or white man on black woman, as we like to think about them nowadays, as we've been taught to view things, right? Oftentimes, and this is the thing with the Middle East and other places like that, and these areas of like, you know, Southern Asia, where a lot of these men are coming from. I don't mean like, you know, Japan and China necessarily, any of those places. You know, the Afghanistan, Pakistan, areas of the Middle East, you know, very dominated by fanatical Muslim groups and stuff like that, whereby you have women that can't go outside on their own without a male escorting them, and they have to dress up in postbox uniform if they want to go out and stuff like that, right? Otherwise, they'll be assaulted and all manner of things happen to them in the name of their quote-unquote God, right? A lot of horrific stories about things that happen in that book as well. The Last Girl, by the way. There's one instance, I won't spoil too much of it, but there's one instance where Nadia, the poor girl, the Yazidi girl, the subject of the book, who wrote it, she tries to escape at one point, one of her captors in his court. And let's just say that the fate after that was grim, to say the least. And you know, you read a book sometimes, especially when you're listening to the audio, and it's not just as you're reading it, you're picturing what the scene looks like in your mind's eye, but when you're reading something and the picture comes to life so much, you can almost smell what it must smell like. You can almost hear what is going on. You can almost feel, it's almost like you're there looking at it. You can taste the things in the air and stuff like that. I was reading it earlier, and I had one of those, you know, moments where, as I was listening to the description and reading it, I almost was able to put myself there. And it's grim, to say the least, in a lot of these areas throughout the world. If you're a Sabiya, or if you're Sabaya, as it's also known if it's plural. But what if it was this instance, for example, in Belgium? So the Muslim Caliphate of Belgium in this instance, where a Muslim woman, for daring to commit the cardinal sin of walking around in the summertime with what appears to be a dress that showed her arms, was surrounded and attacked by Muslim men. And this is what we're talking about now. It's often a case where these areas of the world where, again, the West is in many instances fairly blamed for things that they've done, but also in many instances unfairly, because many areas of the world would still be at war with themselves even if we did nothing. And this is an example of that. This is an example of the persecution that these people do against their own people in the name of religion. Only thing is, with mass migration and these suicidally empathetic multicultural and diversity drives, we've now imported it to our countries, and as such, it's our problem. It makes me wonder, would the media have adopted a different response if the white man, the white British man, or the white Belgian man, you know, the European, had intervened in this scenario? We'll turn it up a bit. So yeah, the shit music. In fact, I'm gonna mute it. But you can see here on screen, ladies and gentlemen, she still appears to be wearing is it the niqab? I believe it is. I get them confused from time to time. But she's wearing a dress which shows her arms, right? And it's like a summery dress. It has like white dotted pattern. And the guy comes up behind her and just takes her legs out from underneath her. Let me rewind that for you, ladies and gentlemen, in case you missed that. So I'm gonna pause it right here, just so you can... Oh, I paused it at the wrong time. I'll pause it by here, just so you can see the dress that the lady is wearing. So this is the dress that she was wearing. For those of you who are listening, not watching, it's like a white... It's like got circles on it, like sort of like a creamy coloured circles on it, and it comes up to just above this part of her and wraps around her body, right? And then you can see what appears to be the straps of a sports bra, a black sports bra, coming over the top of her shoulders, right? Her arms and shoulders are completely exposed, and you can see everything from that point on. But this is something when you see how a lot of girls in our country's dress nowadays, this would pass as conservative, right? Goes all the way down to the tops of her ankles. You can't see anything from there, right? This would pass for conservative, especially when she's got her face completely covered aside from the opening here, right? With her head garment. So this would pass for ultra conservative in Britain nowadays. But watch what happens now as I cut back to the full screen, where you'll see now a man comes up behind her and just callously, heartlessly takes her legs out from underneath her, right? So you see him coming in here now. He's trying to bat him away. He runs in, boom! Takes her legs out. She's on the floor wondering what the hell's going on. And you do seem to see now men intervening. And now the police turn up. The problem is that this is 110% an imported problem. This is 110% an imported problem because it's happening in Belgium. But this just goes to show you. This just goes to show you that this stuff would be happening without any of our interventions. When we are blamed for things like this, when we are blamed for these men being radicalized in this way, it's often very unfair. It's often very unfair. Yes, you can contextualize it with the wars in the past. Yes, you can contextualize it with our, frankly, unnecessary intervention in the Middle East on false premises, right? Yeah, we can talk about all that. We can talk about all that. But this religion that enables this goes back 1,400 years. And we fought 1,400 years to keep it out of our countries. No politician had the right to give our countries over to this. No politician had the right to give our countries over to this. They did it because they knew that they would get more votes and democratic power out of it, and they could use it to use democracy to remove democracy. That's what they wanted, and I feel sorry for this poor woman. I feel sorry for this poor woman that she's in this position. That, I can only imagine, maybe she's an ardent believer in Islam. I can't imagine she would be. I would imagine if she would, she wouldn't go outside wearing this dress. But maybe, just maybe, if all of these, men were removed and Islam was completely removed from Belgium, she would have a much better life. She would have a much better life, much happier life, much safer life. Maybe all of us would, if we removed, in particular in this instance, which I believe is doing more harm than anything at the moment, the spread of Islam that is completely tied in. It's completely tied in with the issue of immigration. Okay, you cannot address the issue of Islam without addressing the issue of immigration. Right? You just cannot address it. Right? A lot of these people, they need to be sent back to their countries of origin, whether they are 1 or 2 generations removed from there anyway. They need to. So we got serious problems on our hands. But our government's not going to want to do that because they will lose a lot of their influence from the votes that they have gained from these people. Right? They lose a lot of the influence from the votes that they've gained, and they can do nothing. They can do nothing to gain favor back with the people that they have betrayed. So this is the thing where it's going to come. Change is now going to come by force one way or another. Right? And in this instance, or in our instance, it's going to come from mass public pressure, which is why for everybody that says this is all talk, this is not making any difference, I can promise you it is. The only advantage that we have as regular people, as you'll know, is our ability to organize and our number. That is the only thing that the establishment has to fear from us. Because they have a monopoly on the police, they have a monopoly on force, they have control of the military. They have control of the border force. They have control of everything. They have monopolies on all this stuff, right? That's just a fact. The only thing they don't have a monopoly on is number, is population. They're rapidly trying to change that. That's why they're bringing in so many more people, because they actually want to get as many people in to give them the best chance of keeping us subjugated as possible. They're quite literally building up a foreign army and have been doing so for at least 25 years, 26 years at least since Tony Blair got in. So that's nearly 30 years now. At least they've been doing this. You can argue that it goes back again even further. You can argue that it goes back to Windrush. You could argue that it goes back to Clement Attlee, Nationality Act and stuff like that. So they're trying to build up this foreign army. That's why they're allowing the small boat migrants in. That's why they're allowing legal immigration to go so high. And that's why they're only putting in, pithy publicity gestures of trying to deal with the problem, they'll think that'll be enough to get people suspicions off them. It won't. People know that there's only one way that this is going to go. This is not going to end well, really, in any way that I can think of, because the evil forces that have the grip on our political system are not going to give back control easily, which is why in many instances I think it's not going to happen until we acknowledge we need something also stronger than any one of us personally. And that's going to involve doing some deep introspection on all of our worldviews, and realizing a couple of things as well. Actually then committing to really things that people have known, that the entire human race has known for the last 2,000 years, until we thought we were so smart that we didn't need it anymore. And this is the destructiveness of pride. This is the destructiveness of pride, and why it's called the cardinal sin, because it will ruin civilizations. It will ruin civilizations. Anyway, coming on to now, again, more now, why you cannot trust the police. And this goes back to the again, people called me a clown in my comments, some of my shorts, for saying about diversity drives and stuff like that in Britain, saying that, oh, you're a clown, diversity, equity and inclusion, DEI is just an American thing. I tell you that it's not. I can tell you that it's not, because obviously we have DEI drives everywhere in every public sector. Every time you see something being discriminated against because of race or ethnicity or religion, whatever it might be, right, that is DEI. That is DEI, right? So because our government calls it different things, because it just doesn't call it outright DEI in many instances, they try to swap equity for equality in the hope you'll get it confused for equality of opportunity and stuff like that. They'll try to use these. The British government is very smart when it comes to this. They're very smart with the terms that they use. And every time then you question something, it makes you think, oh, hang on, you question equality? As if everybody has the same idea on what equality is, right? But this is very sad. PC, so a police constable, harassed a woman as she walked home with her child. I'll give you 3 guesses on what the guy's name was. Maybe you're thinking, I don't know, stereotypical British name, Mike Jones, maybe Stephen Davis. Apologies to any Stephen Davises out there. You know, apologies to any Mike Joneses out there. That's just, I think, the most, stereotypical name. This is in West Yorkshire, by the way. No surprise there. No surprise there. We covered. It seems like there's an epidemic of young girls going missing in West Yorkshire at the moment, which is very, very concerning. Maybe you're thinking of along the lines Tim Woodward. Again, apologies to any Tim Woodwards out there. Maybe his name is George Cresswell. Who knows? No. Raza Mahmood. Just as British as you and me. Police officer who followed a woman in his car as she walked along the street with a child has been sentenced for harassment. Raza Mahmood, who works for the West Yorkshire Police in Calderdale area, was given a 12-month community order, including 80 hours unpaid work, and fined £764 at Sheffield Magistrates Court earlier. This is from the 7th of August, by the way. The court was told Mahmood of College Terrace in Halifax was off duty and in his own car when he followed the woman and shouted, "Oi, come over here." District Judge James Gould said the 13-year-old's behaviour had undermined public confidence in the police service, particularly among members of society who are vulnerable and look to the police for support. Ah, yes, it's this instance of what appears to be, in this instance, very mild harassment. Very, very mild harassment that undermines, faith, undermines public confidence in the police service. Not to do with potentially raping young kids in their cars and aiding the rape gangs in doing what they were doing and threatening the young girls, saying if they said anything, they were going to give them back to the gangs. Nothing to do with them arresting fathers that went to try and rescue their daughters from these gangs, right? Nothing to do with turning a blind eye to everything and arresting people for social media posts, threatening people's grandmothers and all stuff like that through their Ring doorbells. None of that undermines public confidence. None of that undermines public confidence. Still, this shouldn't have happened. Still, this shouldn't have happened. Again, call me discriminatory, call me whatever. Whenever I see a police officer who will now have similar surnames to Raza Mahmood, immediately, no matter what, I will get suspicious. It's a little bit like Charlie Kirk that said because of DEI and stuff like that now in America, if he was to see a black pilot, he would have questions now, which he didn't have before. Is this person qualified to fly this plane? Because they tried to implement DEI to have the first all-black female cabin crew and pilot, and then all of a sudden planes started falling out of the sky with passengers in them and endangering people's lives, right? So again, anytime I see now these things, there will be this pattern recognition and will be this knowledge that because DEI and these left-wing ideologies have been so far baked into our public institutions that, hang on, who the hell am I dealing with? Who the hell am I dealing with, and should they be a police officer? It's sad that it's come to that. It's very sad that it's come to that. But this is pattern recognition. This is understanding of the political system, which obviously the political system itself doesn't want and probably will criminalize in the future. And it's just the case of you got to do what you got to do to protect yourself in many instances. And a lot of these people, whom we're always told we got to feel sorry for some reason, have shown themselves untrustworthy. They've shown themselves untrustworthy and incompatible with what they're doing. Yet they're being pushed into it more and more and more. And we're told, no, we got to double down on diversity. We got to double down on multiculturalism and all this stuff. No, absolutely not. But the woman said here in a victim impact statement, it had left her really scared and paranoid. I honestly thought the man was going to physically hurt me or kidnap me. You know, could that be classed as, racial or ethnic profiling? Could that be classed as unconscious bias? Oh, you're such a bigot. It's sarcastic, by the way, obviously. The married father of two, Mahmood, was said to have shouted at the woman before driving off in his car and then returning, following her on at least 4 occasions. So this is where we're seeing now that this is, again, pattern recognition and noticing repeated behaviours that is conducive to threatening behaviour. If you see somebody... I often feel it sometimes. If I see somebody behind me in the rear view mirror that I go onto a roundabout and they end up coming off the same exit as me and they seem to be making all the same turns as me. Doesn't matter who it is. It can just be any other car. But I'm thinking, oh, hang on, what's going on here? You'd have the natural paranoid element, even though there's nothing going on. Right? But now you've seen this. You have the same person, same car, hollering at you from the car, of foreign descent, and you likely have an understanding of everything else that's been going on with people from foreign descent, particularly with regards to Rotherham, Oldham, all of these things, right? And now you see him following you on at least 4 occasions. Yes, you're going to think that you're in danger. You'd be silly not to. You'd be silly not to, even if you didn't have the ethnic concerns, right? Even if there wasn't the ethnic concerns and none of this that was amplified by ethnicity and cultural norms and stuff like this, right? You'd still be well within your rights. If this was just a regular person that you may just know from the community, but all of a sudden you seem to see this person more than usual. He's hollering at you from his car and he seems to be following you, especially when you're with your children. And yes, your defensive instincts are going to perk up no matter what. And they should. They should, no matter what's going on. The court heard the woman phoned her partner to ask him to pick her up rather than complete the journey in the dark on foot. That's a smart thing to do. I find myself always looking over my shoulder when I'm out. He can't and should not be trusted around girls and shouldn't be a police officer. Mahmood remains employed by the force, though he has been suspended from duty and will face internal misconduct proceedings, and now the criminal case against him has concluded. His barrister, Sam Roxburgh, said Mahmood's conviction for harassment, quote, will see him lose his career. He's clearly someone who valued that job. He had worked hard to become a police officer. I have questions around that. It was a job that he took great pride in, and it was one that he took a great deal of time in achieving. With the state of the police officers that we see nowadays, again, I have massive questions about this, but this is the photo of the guy that was included on the article, ladies and gentlemen. So this is the guy. This is the guy that was recently involved in this harassment case, which I believe it said that he was convicted for, and he got, again, a slap on the wrist. There's no deterrent. 600, not even 4 figures, 80 hours of unpaid work, and then a 12-month community order. What kind of deterrence? What kind of deterrence is this? It isn't one. It isn't one.